So let's move it along, and we're going to talk the big MMA news. And this week we are delighted to say we are podcasting crossover here. We have podcaster and writer for Severe MMA, Sean Sheehan. So Sean, thanks a million for taking the time to come on to Obviously Fight Talk.
Thanks for having me on, lads. It's great. We've been talking about this for a while, so it's good to finally get on. Very appreciative. Thanks for having me on. It's good to support each other as well. Irish podcast doing good, so fair play to
you. Just like anything, it's worth waiting 2.5 years, I think.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
So this is the segment where we're just going to talk our big stories. So, for example, Donald Cowboy Cerrone had a huge win over the weekend over Alex Hernandez, and subsequently got a call out from Mr. McGregor, where McGregor tweeted, "For a fight like that, Donald, I'll fight you. Congratulations." So, first of all, Sean, when you seen the tweet, and obviously Cowboy had called Conor out in quite a pleasant way, sort of said, "I'd like to fight Conor if he took it." What was your initial thoughts of about the call out from Cowboy first before we talk about the fight, and then, of course, Conor's tweet?
I thought the Cowboy call out was good, because most people who call out McGregor, your McNuggets or your oil leprechaun or all this bullshit, but Cowboy, I think he didn't really even call him out. He just said, "I'd kind of like to fight McGregor," and then he moved on to his next sentence, which I thought is actually a good way of doing it. You don't want to go overboard with McGregor. Like, you hear him talking all the time about these guys being, tryhards and everything like that, just trying to get the money fight, the whole Red Banty night and all he's famous for it. And Cerrone maybe was a little bit like that in the past, but I think Cerrone's the type of guy that, and you can see it, we don't have to look back too far. Look back at Saturday. He took Alexander Hernandez, which is maybe the exact opposite to McGregor in terms of money fights. Hernandez is a good guy, no doubt about it, but he's not going to make you loads of money. He's not this big name fighter. So he will take 10 of them, and if he gets one big money fight, he's happy enough. So I think he has kind of that monkey off his back. The fact that he's not like an Aloy Quinta gone after everything, just he'll wait out for 2 years, or a Nate Diaz to wait out to get this big fight. So I think he has that. McGregor's reply, I didn't expect that, to be honest. I didn't expect McGregor to say that. Like, for me, I remember I did an article. It was part of an article, I think it was over in Bleacher Report there a couple of years ago, and we were talking about Conor McGregor and whether he'd continue fighting and stuff like that. And a point I kind of made was McGregor always tried to take a step up. It was always, it was Aldo, then it was the two big Nate fights. He was going up to lightweight. Then it was the obviously the Eddie Alvarez fight. Then it was the Floyd fight. It's up and up and up all the time. And Habib is the biggest fight ever, as obviously we've seen. Cerrone wouldn't be that though anymore, would it? Cerrone would be a little bit step down in terms of maybe money, in terms of obviously quality from Habib. So I was a little bit surprised that way. I always thought it'd be maybe a GSP, maybe a Habib rematch and stuff like that. But maybe that's actually a good thing. Maybe that's what McGregor needs if he wants to get back and wants to fight kind of contenders coming up, like he kind of alluded to in that Instagram post from a while back. But whether it happens or not, I suppose that's the big thing coming up over the next couple of months.
I think that's actually a great point, Sean, about how he approached it, because the only one that I remember where somebody came out and said, "I want to fight you because I hate you," and all this stuff, was the Nate Diaz one. But it seems like Conor's more drawn towards the guys who are more like dismissive of him. They're like, "I'd love to fight you because whatever," but they're not really that. It's not like that guy or that girl who's chasing the guy or girl. The really desperate person. It's not like that. It's the ones that who kind of sit back and say, "I'd love to fight you. Brilliant. I'll beat the shit out of you," and that's the ones he kind of gets drawn to. I think that's a great point. Yeah.
The point you made as well, Sean, just to go a little bit on it. You mentioned, maybe it's not the fight now. Like, do you think that maybe potentially for this matchup we're past the prime time it could have happened at?
For the Cerrone fight, is it? I don't know. No, I think it'd probably draw better now than it ever would in the past, I think, unless McGregor, maybe when McGregor had the belt after beating Eddie Alvarez, although the Floyd fight came after that, so probably not. It probably is now. But the problem is it's not that it's not the prime time for that fight. It definitely is, but it's not the prime time for kind of McGregor. If McGregor had beaten Habib and he had the belt, then it'd be absolutely huge. Like, I don't think anyone would say that McGregor versus Cowboy is going to be as big as McGregor versus Habib. I just don't think that's true. No. When I say it won't be that big, okay, it might be $1 million, it might be $1.5 million or something like that. I did a podcast the other day, and I was thinking maybe if it did $1.5 million, it'd be huge. I don't think it'd do under $1 million, to be honest. But that's a huge number for the UFC and a huge number for anyone else. But for Conor McGregor, that's a step down. So that's an issue for him. And as I said, he never liked to take a step down. That's why I thought it'd be the rematch or GSP or maybe something in boxing. But it's a fight like that. if before that McGregor Instagram post from a while back where he said he's willing to fight all the contenders coming up, before this Twitter tweet about him fighting Cowboy, about him accepting, I never thought it'd be possible. But now, he's saying that maybe it is possible, but still, I'm not. What do you think? Like, do you think he's actually going to do that? Is he actually going to fight Cowboy, like, or do you think he'll want to wait for a big fight?
Just as you were speaking, I actually thought of something that seems to be really important to Conor, and it's when somebody signs, they actually show up for the fight.
That's true,
and that's Cowboy to a T. I don't think Nate wouldn't show up for the fight. Nate always shows up for fights, but it's kind of hard to actually get him to sign for a fight. So who knows what's going to happen there. GSP, he's had problems in the past. Doesn't generally pull out of fights, but again, he's a guy who's kind of difficult to deal with. Whereas Cowboy, if Conor says, I want to fight him, and the UFC try and make it, it's going to happen. There's no blocker to that. So I think that's one of the probably big pros, I guess, that Cowboy has for it.
As well, I think a little bit of Conor, and this goes right back to Cage Warriors days and everything. He appreciates the game. He appreciates the graft, and he knows he's the big money fight, and he knows that.
Yeah.
And he would probably tell you he's a fan of Cowboy. That he always turns up the fight. He comes in. Yeah. Some nights Cowboys just isn't on him. And when we were breaking this down, I said, "Will this be one of them nights that he just doesn't turn up?" I said the way he spoke about his son, he had different motivation and stuff like that. And I think Conor McGregor sees that, and he's like, you know what? Fuck, man. And it's weird that Conor can call his shots, and even Cowboy has said it. But I honestly think that McGregor looked at that and thought, man, you earned this fight. You know, and like the fans that enjoy it. Big Cowboy is a big following, big cohort of fans. And I just think it's a fun fight, and I think it potentially is the right fight as well for Conor McGregor. I think the build up, and even I think it was pre-fight actually, he was going on about all these guys want to talk. Like Hernandez was like, I seen a great meme, and it was like the meme, whatever you young people call it, about where he said like Hernandez looks like the bully in every 80s actually, movie or something.
He looks like Biff from Back to the Future, doesn't he?
But he said like McGregor is a master at this. He'll dig at your soul, and he'll really, and like that's one aspect of this fight that I'll find, like, as in a lot of people, we were actually even asked on the live chat the other evening, Rob, there was a question in relation to Cowboy. He notoriously does bad when somebody gets inside his head, and we said, let's see on Saturday night how true this is. We tend to point it out when it happens, but I just think Conor McGregor would live in Cowboy's head in the lead up to this. And then the style, like, I think like Cowboy offers trouble on the feet. I think you'd look at the power of Conor. Cowboy can stay in there, and what really impressed me with the fight on Saturday evening was it was put to him. Hernandez put a heavy pressure and heavy pace. He literally got the blueprint in how people think you beat Donald Cowboy Cerrone, employed that, but Cerrone just fought through it, landed that beautiful step in knee that was working every time Hernandez was coming in, and the momentum of the fight turned, and Cowboy got his way. So I think he offers a lot of dangers to Conor McGregor, especially if it hits the mat.
Like for Hernandez at the weekend, like I actually think he tried to implement the blueprint, but he didn't do it correctly at all. Like when you're fighting with Cowboy, we've seen it in loads of fights, Nate Diaz especially, and it was a Masvidal fight as well. If you box with him, like if you can box with Cerrone and push him back, you'll beat him. Like Hernandez was trying to push him back, but he was just throwing big shots. Like if anyone goes back and watches that fight, just big shots from nowhere, not setting him up, not throwing any jab or anything. You'd think that way with Conor McGregor. What does Conor McGregor do to everyone? He pushes them back, he throws jabs, he throws combinations and stuff like that. You saw the Cerrone against Hernandez. It was just all Cerrone combinations and destroying him. Another thing as well, like you were talking about why would Conor take the Cerrone fight? Maybe he thinks it's an easy matchup for him. Himself and John Kavanagh have said in the past that Cerrone is so open. What after his fights, I remember tweets from both of them saying that he's so open to that big left hand. We saw the Dos Anjos fight where he boxed him and he's a southpaw, hit him with the big left hand a few times as well. But the problem is then, like, is Conor McGregor the same Conor McGregor as he always was? If this is 90% Conor McGregor, 100% Conor McGregor, he ties with Donald Cerrone. I think he beats him really easily. But is he that Conor McGregor anymore? And if he's not, you mentioned there takedowns. Donald Cerrone's takedowns have improved an awful lot. If he can get underneath Conor, take him down, you could see another submission loss for McGregor. But I think most people would, looking at that fight, if it's at all the Conor McGregor we know from back in the day, even 2 years ago or whatever, I think he ties with Cerrone. But that's a big thing. McGregor talks a lot about doubts. And you remember you saw in the documentary and you saw in different things after fights, and doubt me now, doubt me now. And I wrote an article about that before for Sherdog, and I was like, no one really kind of did doubt him. You know, people don't like him, and you know, people. It's not that it's not that they doubted him, but there were just kind of maybe questions about his game and his wrestling and stuff. But I never think anyone like really had severe doubts about him. But now they do. You know, there are big doubts about him now. You know, he has fought one MMA fight in the last 2.5 years. He's off selling whiskey all the time. You know, is he going to be the same fighter he is? And I think Donald Cerrone is a very, very good fight to prove if he's still in that level. If he beats Cerrone, he's back in the level of fighting Khabib, fighting the top guys. If he doesn't, he's not. It's
kind of interesting as well that it seems like the game plan that seems to beat the other guy is almost the same thing. It's pressure, it's pace. It's maybe not cardio for Cerrone, but it's pace and pressure and aggression. And it seems the same for Conor. If you put pace on him, put aggression on him, take him to deep waters, it can go. Question for Ollie and even Sean, because Sean hasn't said anything in this. Young Sean Taylor. Is Conor the same guy, not physically and not as a fighter, but I mean, if he comes back, is there the same fanfare for a Conor McGregor fight that there was before the Khabib fight? Or did the Khabib fight make that lesson, in your opinion?
I'll fire back on that. Yeah. I think yes, for the simple fact
he is the same. It's going to be
as
the same.
in for the fans, yeah, because I think I think Conor McGregor fans are unbreakable. They are like
are the casual fans? They're the ones that will tune in. Are they still interested to see it?
Yes, definitely. Because what will happen is, like, I remember when Conor jumped the cage at Bellator, and you hear all the stories of everything that's going on outside of the cage. I'm like, man, you know, I lose interest in it. I lost, like, you know, I said it like on this. I said he needs to reel it in a bit. You know what I mean? And sort of
relax yourself.
Yeah, as in, calm down. Be the fighter that you were. Stop being this, you know, Instagram poster, as you said, off selling whiskey, doing all this. But then all of a sudden, the fight gets announced, and he starts doing it, and the droves will come back in. McGregor fans are like historians who only half listen to the story in class. They forget his last result, and they're just happy that Conor McGregor is back in the cage. So for me, yes, the fanfare is there, but I think the point to be made is it the same Conor McGregor from 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Did we see that in the Khabib fight? I thought his "everybody's a bitch" post on Instagram the other week was very peculiar, very strange. That he was giving Paulie Malignaggi absolute stick at the start of it, and then went on to say that Khabib done nothing but bitch, and you started going, well, you're basically doing what Malignaggi done, and you're giving out about that. So it was very weird. So my answer to that is yes, the fans will come in. It's Conor McGregor, and they, like I said, they only half listen when it's McGregor, and they'll forget the result.
I think personally, like, for us, McGregor's next fight is his next fight. You know, just like Cerrone's next fight is his next fight, or GSP's next fight, and we remember their career. It's the next step in their career. For 90% of the people, it's not. It's an event. You know, it's like this, maybe the Super Bowl for us. You know, we'd watch it once a year, and that's it. You know, we get a bit of popcorn, stay up late and watch it. For most people, like, you know, how many people tuned into the last pay-per-view? You know, 200,000, 250,000 if you've a lot. You know, if you've a lot of people, just. You know, 2 million more tuned into McGregor's last fight. So where are those people coming from? These people are tuning in because they're getting friends over for a few beers on a Saturday night. You know, they'll call it Chinese, call it pizza or whatever, and then make an event out of it over in America. That's what it is. And when, you know, you ring up your friend on a Friday night and say, Conor McGregor's fighting tomorrow, their friend's not going to reply, oh no, he lost 4 months ago. I'm not going to watch the fight. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'll bring the beers. You know, that's what it is. And maybe we're a little bit too close to the trees sometimes. But I think for most people, it's going to be that. And, you know, if a big fight comes up, you know, Cowboy mightn't get all those people in, but if a huge big fight comes up from McGregor Green, I think people will come back and will watch him.
Yeah, for me, the fanfare is the exact same. I was in college today and I was talking to some friends about it who aren't MMA fans whatsoever. They told me, they asked me, were we recording today? I said, yeah. And then he told me that he's watched like 3 pay-per-views in his life. Khabib, Aldo, and I think it was Mendez or something. Yeah. So. Yeah, like I wonder if the brawl helped or hurt. Like if the brawl didn't happen, I'd wonder if it helped or hurt, because once that ended, the loss almost disappeared for a lot of people. It was just about the brawl. So people kind of forget that he got dominated by Khabib, and they're probably, you know, thinking of maybe him coming back and getting retribution. Whereas if the loss happened and Khabib got his hand raised, maybe it'd be a little bit different for some fans. But it's an interesting one. And I think it's the same for the likes of, give him a shout out, with big fan of his work, Joe Brolly. The likes of that, but they're also waiting for Conor McGregor to come back, because they can print their bullshit and get it printed out, and that'll get the people who are opposed to the sport have their,
cockfighting. So it works on both ways.
Imagine McGregor comes back and shit. What do you think of that, Joe Brawley?
It was Henry Cejudo's win over TJ Dillashaw and the Joseph Benavidez Dustin Ortiz fight. Where does the flyweight division stand, and have them two fights potentially saved it? So what's next for both fighters and the division, Sean?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because like I really want this flyweight division to be saved. You know, I'm trying to get this hashtag Fly Never Die thing going. Impossible, but I see the problem is, right, that fight makes lots of sense. Joseph Benavidez has beaten Cejudo. He just won it the weekend on the same card as Cejudo. Cejudo won, but Cejudo just beat the 135-pound champion. Like, how can you make anything but Cejudo versus Dillashaw for the 135-pound belt? And if that happens, which it has to, what are they going to do with 125? Like, they're not going to make an interim belt there. Are they going to keep it around for, like, it could be a year before Henry Cejudo's back and ready to fight at flyweight. Let's say that's, and I think it would be a longer fight. I think it could be, you know, a 4 or 5 round fight if they fought again. I don't think that fight at the weekend was, you know, it was an odd fight. I don't think it'll go that way again. Like, so he could be gone for a long time. And is that enough time to save the division, or is it enough time to kill the division? I think it'd probably be enough time to kill it, unfortunately. And it's, you know, it's terrible for the likes of Joseph Benavidez and, you know, Yusuf Formiga and all the other great fighters in that division. But it looks like it's going to go that way. For me, I think, like, for the UFC, for the health of the whole UFC, if you're thinking like that, which Endeavour aren't thinking like that anymore, it looks like, because of all these, you know, these champion versus champion matchups and all. The best way is to make the, you know, Marai Sharasan against Dillashaw and to make Joseph Benavidez against Henry Cejudo and get both divisions going. Because, like, it's not going to be, okay, they did well on ESPN at the weekend, but I don't think it's going to be a big money pay-per-view bout or anything like that. So, you know, I think in this case you're probably better off saving the flyweight division, getting those two divisions going for the UFC, but I don't think it'll happen. I think they'll fight for 125-pound belt, amalgamate the belts, and then we'll never see flyweight again.
Funny enough, I think that now the flyweight division is like in its healthiest state, and they almost have the most promotable guy, because if the UFC were smart, they'd come out and they'd almost put themselves into this whole promotion of it and say, we're going to chop this division, and Henry Cejudo single-handedly came out and he saved this division. Put everything behind him. Say he's the one that changed our mind, he's the superstar, and then see where it goes. It's not guaranteed it'll work. It's not a guarantee that people will tune in, but at least it's a start. They didn't have that before. They didn't have any kind of hinge, whereas now with Cejudo, they actually have a built-in thing. We're going to close this thing, and he changed our minds. He's a star. Go with that.
I agree with both points the points both of you have made, but my thing for the fear of the flyweight division is the first thing Henry Cejudo says is, let's fight at 135.
Yeah.
So he's saying in one hand,
I'm
going to save the whole division. It's all of me. Dana, if I win on Saturday night, let's keep the division round.
Doing this for the 25.
We'll see on Saturday. First thing out of his mouth when he wins is, let's do it again at 135. You're like, what the fuck? And like, I think in some ways it's a weird way, and throw it to Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes has said, like, no interest in fighting for
that division's
now.
dead.
It's gone. Do you know what I mean? I've no interest. The division's dead. And you're going, hey, you just won the belt. And it in some ways that's what all these super fights are doing. Is they're lessening the value in each weight class. So I'd like to see. I agree with you, Sean. I'd like to see them match in both divisions, because there's plenty of fighters there for both fighters. It's not like they've both cleared out their respective divisions. So I think there's a lot of fights there, and I do think the common sense thing, and I like what Joey Benavidez put up on Instagram. You really played it, you know, I have a win over you. I'm sure a competitor like you will want to get that win back. Thought it was a nice tack by him.
The difference, I think, as well between the Nunes Cyborg situation is, and I was on Submission Radio before the fight, and I was talking about it. Like, I think the best thing that could have happened was Nunes winning that fight, then a rematch, then Cyborg winning, and then a third fight, because both those divisions need time to build up. You know, that 145-pound division, okay, is it even a division? They had it tough there not long ago. You know, get 5 or 6 fights going, get someone on a 2 or 3 fight win streak. Look at the 125-pound. You know, you've Jessica, you know, fighting for the belt, which, you know, you could get someone as good as Jessica in 145 pounds and make that title fight. There's really no one 135 pounds at the moment. There's, you know, Kathleen Vieira, I think, is very good, probably deserving of a shot, but, you know, she could do with a fight or two more. I think it makes huge sense to have Nunes fight Cyborg again. And I saw Nunes coming out and saying, talking about going down to 125 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, no. Why would you want to do that? You want to fight Valentina Shevchenko again, and two good fights, but not ones that casual fans are gonna tune in for. Fight that Cyborg fight again. It's a huge fight, and that I said the last one was the biggest women's fight ever. Maybe not the best women's fight ever, maybe not the biggest because of Ronda Rousey and all that, but this one would be even bigger again. I think you have to do that. Whereas, is the Benavidez Cejudo is not going to be that big, is it? Moraes Dillashaw is still not going to be that big, so they're kind of in a different situation there. But like the UFC seemed dead set against the 125-pound men's division because. You talked about there, and I 100% agree. You could put stuff behind Henry Cejudo. He's an Olympic gold medalist, good-looking guy. You could put that guy on posters with his Olympic medal and his belt, and maybe 2 belts if it goes right. But they had Demetrius Johnson, who in my opinion is the greatest MMA fighter of all time, in a decision which I thought was a robbery personally. Everyone doesn't agree with me on that, but it was a very, very close decision anyway. Well, it was a close win. Let's put it that way. That was ripe for the picking there. You've a huge rematch. Demetrius Johnson, for years and years, we were talking about him not having a file, not having, his Chael Sonnen into his Anderson Silva. And he gets one. And what did they do? They trade him for Ben Askren. Yeah. For Jesus' sake, could you be more idiotic? Ben Askren's going to lose a couple of fights here in the UFC. He's not going to ever fight for the title in the welterweight division. And they trade him for the greatest fighter of all time. I just think they have no interest in this division, and if they had no interest in it, making it a big fight for the division, how are they going to have any interest in it now? I can't see it happening.
To that, what do you think of Dana White's comments? I can't remember where the comments were. Probably because every article I seem to read with Dana White now is TMZ. But where he said nobody was clamoring for the division until we said we were cutting its head off, and now everybody's like, oh my god, nobody was interested in the flyweights.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. People, I love the flyweights. Everyone, MMA fans love the flyweights. And the problem is, and the crux of this argument is, the flyweights are never going to be McGregor. They're never going to be Jones. But 99% of that roster is never going to be Jones and McGregor. Should they get rid of welterweight? Tyron Woodley draws absolutely nothing. Max Holloway doesn't draw. Should they get rid of that? Should they get rid of 135? Should they get rid of 135-pound women, 125-pound women, 115-pound women? That's not a good argument. If you say they don't draw, nobody draws apart from 3 or 4 people. So I really that argument is broken down straight away. It feels like they just don't want it. I don't know why they got a reason why. Maybe if they have too many people in the roster, they're cutting down events, and that seems to be what's happening. And this is maybe the easiest division to get rid of for them. Endeavour came in, as I mentioned earlier on. They made a lot of changes. Sacked a lot of people, and fighters are not going to be exempt from that, so it's probably something to do with that, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit of a stupid argument because you're talking about closing a division and essentially sacking tons of people, air quotes. But yeah, of course people are going to be talking about the division. You're going to sack a lot of people and you're going to close the division. Of course, but plenty of people talked about Demetrius Johnson all the time. They talked about him all the time. Media talked about him all the time.
But Demetrius Johnson I found with Demetrius Johnson, was almost like the Howard Stern effect. You'd people, bear with me, I'll get there.
Okay.
You don't remember the Howard Stern movie that they made?
Yeah.
People, they used to say, the average time people used to listen that liked him was, for example, let's say 5 minutes, and the average time for people who didn't like him was 10 minutes, and they were like, why did you listen to hear what he said next? That was both of their answers. So Demetrius Johnson, to my weird point to that, is you have people like Sean and myself, and I believe yourself, who will say Demetrius Johnson is the GOAT. He's one of the best mixed martial artists to ever do it. But then you'll have guys who will come out and be like, no
he's
way,
nobody.
You know what I mean? He's fighting nobody. He's beating tiny men, and they don't understand it. You know what I mean? So that's what I found you had with Demetrius Johnson, and I don't think they cashed that check with that angle and aspect. I thought actually the great advertisement for the flyweights was the Benavidez Ortiz fight. I thought the scrambles and
that was lovely.
I
really enjoyed that.
Daniel Cormier just sounded like he wasn't watching fighting. He sounded like he was watching something that you clear your
heavy
history
breathing,
with.
Yeah. The thing about it is, look at Henry Cejudo now, who in my opinion Demetrius Johnson beat twice. He went up and beat 130, he stayed down and beat 135-pound champion. Look at Horiguchi. He went over and beat the 135-pound champion of Bellator over in Risen. Look how good he has been. Demetrius, I hate that argument so much that he's never beaten anyone. He has beaten brilliant guys, and they're saying, he's afraid to go up to 135 pounds. I believe he won 13 fights at 135 pounds. and only after like I think he won like 13 out of 14 and something,
Yeah,
and lost to
Dom.
fucking Dominic Cruz in his prime.
Yeah.
Like, and that was before he got before Demetrius Johnson got near his prime. So like, this guy, he might be the most underappreciated fighter of all time, even though a lot of people say a lot of good things about him, but it hurts me to see Demetrius Johnson gone. It really does. I was such a big fan of him.
I found Joey Benavidez's comments interesting. He said DJ's dominance was crippling for the flyweight division. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on that. I don't know if you've seen the comments, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on that.
So, kind of, sort of, wasn't it, in a way? Like, I think it was more so that he didn't have a rival, rather than his dominance, because I think even Anderson Silva, when he was dominating at middleweight, there wasn't a huge amount of interest in the division itself, and even his pay-per-views weren't doing very good until Chael Sonnen came, and he was still dominating. He won that fight, and he continued to win fights, but it was when he got that foil, as Sean said, was when people started tuning in, because they were like, maybe there's a chink in that armour. And maybe if they'd done the Cejudo rematch and kept DJ around, people would have been more interested, because he'd be more of a common man or something, in their eyes. But yeah, I agree that his dominance didn't hurt it, but it's just that he didn't have anybody that was even competitive with him.
Strange timing though, as well, as Sean has said as well, though, that when they do get Cejudo, and then they're like, all right, you go off and fight. The
writing was on the wall, wasn't it? Actually, I forgot about Horiguchi. We should have known. They let Horiguchi go. He lost one fight in the UFC.
Yeah, strange. Dennis Bermudez called time on his career after his unanimous win over T. Edwards this weekend. Post-fight, Bermudez said, "It was pretty awesome that I get to do it here in New York. I've been through some stuff. I thought about hanging up the gloves after those 4 losses in a row, and I want my kids to look back at this, and even though I went through adversity, I finished on top." My question with that quote in the career is, how will Bermudez be remembered? Sean?
We were talking about this earlier, and I was thinking about it, and there's 2 answers here, so I'm going to give you the nice one first, and then the not nice one.
You're going to get my nice one. I guarantee it's my bad one.
No, I don't know. I think he'd be remembered as a guy who brought it all the time. He was a fun fighter. He always gave his best. He beat Max Holloway. He'd be remembered as a guy who beat one of the greatest fighters of all time. A fun all-rounder, never in the odd time in a boring fight. A guy who tried to improve himself all the time. Came in very much as kind of a wrestler, and did improve his striking. A few knockouts in the UFC, and a few, knocked out a few times himself and stuff like that. So that's the nice answer. But the not nice answer is he won't be remembered, because that's the problem with a guy like Dennis Bermudez. Like like I could say to you, like, remember a midfielder in Man United in the '99 season. You're gonna say Roy Keane, you're gonna say Paul Scholes, but nobody's gonna remember Nicky Butt like straight away, are they? Like, and I think that's the problem for him. You say remember a wrestle boxer, a 145er, you're gonna say Frankie Edgar, you're gonna say Chad Mendes, you might even say Ricardo Lamas, but nobody in 5 years is gonna say Dennis Bermudez, and that's unfortunate for him. But that's just the fact about it, I'm afraid.
I suppose.
Yeah, it's grim. And to your point, like, when I think, when someone says something or says a name to you, what flashes into your mind? What flashes into my mind is Jeremy Stevens knocking him out with a fine knee. That's the jumping knee. That's what, when I think of him, that's what I think of.
Yeah, I said it to you as well. I remember the Mac Rice fight. Mac Rice, right? It's Mac. But I thought it was a great fight, and that was one that I really, really enjoyed, and it's almost one that I still consider one of my favourite fights. But yeah, he's a weird one. Like, he was never somebody who got to the top, but he went on some good streaks. And if you're going to say, Conor beat Max Holloway at some point, you have to give Dennis Bermudez that as well, because it wasn't too far in the difference in terms of time. But yeah, I think he'd be remembered by us, but I think you're right. Like, casual fans and people who don't really tune in all the time, they're not going to really remember him a whole lot, especially because he fought at lower weights as well. But yeah, it's a good memory. No.
And what do we think of the whole gloves, putting the glove down? It's just it didn't seem to get any. Didn't it, Lee? Like, I remember when Brad Pickett gave up and he put the hat down, and it was a little bit like, but like, the gloves in the centre of the cage. Fan or not fan, Sean, you're nodding your head. I'm taking you're not a fan.
He'll be back. He'll fight again in 2019.
Bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah, Norman Park's fighting in bare knuckle boxing as well. No, who retires? There's Cole Conrad has retired, Cathal Pindred has retired, and Neil Seary could be back as well. You would know that fella, but nobody retired. Nobody retires in MMA. He'll be back. Someone will give him an offer. Rising will give him an offer, Bellator or something. He'll be back. So,
I agree. He was on Ariel's show, and he was asked, was this always the plan? He said, yeah, unless I went out and I won like really quickly with a knockout, I would have continued. And he's like, why? He's like, because I wouldn't have got any damage and I could have had another one. So yeah, I think he's still on the edge about it. I don't think he's fully committed.
Big talking point from the last week. The opinions were everywhere on this one. The most important questions, of course, this week. Thoughts on the new UFC belt? Sean?
There's an old saying that if you get a committee to design a horse, you'll turn up with a camel. And I think that's what this belt is. There's great ideas. You know, that post they put out afterwards with a little pointy thing saying, oh, here's the flag and here's, 25-year load of bullshit. Like, come on, let's be honest with you. It's great. It looks absolutely fucking horrendous. Like, let's be honest here. They made an octagon, they stuck it onto a bit of fucking leather, and they're going to put, like, the country's flag. Oh, come on. Get over it. Like, it's terrible. It looks absolutely rotten. I don't know how anyone likes this belt. It looks terrible. It doesn't really matter. I sound like I'm getting caught up in this, but
I don't know why people.
Sean's been arguing on Reddit all day.
I just think it looks horrendous. The old one was grand. I never even really looked at the old one that closely until this happened. But then I went to look. I was like, well, that one's not great either, but it's better than this one anyway. But yeah, it's pretty horrendous.
I thought when I first seen it, as in when Dana White had it like in front of him or holding it, I'm like, that looks like something RoboCop would wear if he was given like the RoboCop championship. And then a lot of people were saying it looks Power Rangery.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
but I have to say, when Dana White actually wrapped the belt around Cejudo, I was like, who cares? It's a belt.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
there's too much going on for me. Like, it's just you just want a classy, simple belt.
It's like a bedazzled belt, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very blingy.
It is quite cool that the Irish flag is on it and that, but like there's too much.
They got you. Look, they hooked
them. They've hooked me.
Those 8 countries. Those 8 countries that got their flag on it. They're gonna love it. I don't mind it. It's a bit blingy for me. I think the original belt was better. But it's going to be one of them things where it's going to grow on everybody and it's just going to be the belt.
It's a money-saving racket because you only get a different colour gem in your belt. That's the end of it.
It's kind of bad for him as well. There's only been 11 countries have won a UFC championship and they only put 8 of them on the belt. Like, could you not have stretched it a bit and put the extra 3? Like, that would be true, actually. Bad for him. Like,
it'd be like bringing one up. You mentioned Man United there, Sean. Like, remember the blue and white stripe, the away jersey that had all the players' names, and then they were like, lads, there's no black fellas' names on the jersey. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, there was no Ince, Parker, none of them. Yeah, there was a lot of there was a big thing about that and loads of players. Yeah, big thing. And then they fixed it because my jersey had Ince on it. Definitely had Ince on it. Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, there you go. Going deep.
Dark.
Anyway,
a former a colleague. Do we still call him a colleague, P.T. Carroll, or is he scum because he's moved to MMA?
Scum is all he is. Traitor is what he is. That's all he is. Never
treacherous.
The great P.T. Carroll was speaking with Gunnar Nelson, and Gunnar Nelson said he was surprised with the Leon Edwards booking. He pursued the Darren Till fight in UFC London. We were looking for some other names. Masvidal or Till would have been great, Nelson told Eurobash when he was on. I think there have been some other names on the table. I can't remember exactly. I wasn't really eyeing Leon. I knew he was going to be on the card, but I thought he had already been matched up. What do we think of the matchup?
It's a good matchup. Yeah, I like the fight. I think it's very good. Obviously Leon Edwards is a good, well-rounded guy. Gunnar Nelson always talks about getting big name fighters and all, and they're in a very similar situation, right? And it's a similar situation lots of fighters find them in. They get this one big name.
Yeah.
And then they lose to him, and then they find it very hard to get a second big name. Now, Leon Edwards, okay, he lost to Cameron Usman, but he got Cerrone his last fight, fair play to him. But, it was one of those which we talked about earlier. It's just the one Cerrone took because they offered him a name, and he took it. Gunnar Nelson obviously lost to Rick Story, and he managed to come back, and he got that Damian Maia fight. Then he got Ponzinibbio, which is a fight who could have risen him up again, and he lost all those fights. Obviously, we can talk about the Ponzinibbio fight as well. That's the way it ended and stuff. But this was I think it's number 10 ranked against number 12 ranked. That's just kind of a fight they make. 2 European guys. I think it's good matchmaking. Nothing wrong with it. I think it's a very, very good fight. The problem is for both of them, and it's always a problem, is I was talking about getting a big name. If you got a big name, like let's say the Ponzinibbio fight, and I know, okay, he's not the biggest name in the world, but he's higher ranked. If you beat a guy like that, you rise yourself up the rankings, and like Covington when he beat Maia, or like Usman did as well, you rise yourself up. But when you're 10 fighting 12 or 12 fighting 10, how far are you actually going to rise? That's a problem for them. Winning this fight, it's not going to actually do that much for them. But for me, I think it's a very good fight. I'm looking forward to it, and it's a good co-main event. I think it's a very good card, especially at least the top 2 anyway that we've seen so far. The Till Masvidal fight is a good fight as well. I don't think Masvidal is the best fighter in the world, but it should be a fun stand-up fight, that one as well.
Yeah, look, if you took those 4 guys and you made a combination of them all, I kind of like the way they've done it. I think it's a great fight, but I do agree with you, Sean. I just think that whoever wins this fight, even though it's a great win, it's not going to do a whole lot for either guy. They're going to be similar positions. They're going to kind of be stagnant in that same position, which is a shame for both guys because Leon, of course, is, he's rising, but again, he hasn't really got that signature win. And then Gunnar, he's kind of win loss, that kind of thing. So yeah, it just kind of leaves them in the same position if they win. But it is a great win. Like, you can't underestimate the win if they do get it.
As well, on the show, Gunny was talking about the UFC had told him his next fight would be over in the States and stuff, so he was surprised. He thought he wasn't going to be on the card. As he said, he was pursuing, and it's something that Gunny spoke when he was with us. He doesn't normally get involved in the fighters. A bit like, just give me the contract and I'll sign it. But yeah, a good fight considering, like, Edwards, the good win over Cerrone. But yeah, it is.
It's mad though, isn't it? That, like,
it's real stuck in the
either
same
guy
position.
could have got someone like RDA who's coming off some losses, and it still would have been a better fight for them, which is kind of a weird one, but it is true. Yeah.
I suppose the one downfall is from the European scene is one of the top European fighters has to lose here and stagnate a little bit going forward. But that's shaping up to be a good card as well. Just briefly looking at the card, we've like Volkan Ozdemir taking on Royce on the card. Jack Marshman taking on John Phillips. Wales beating Wales. Dragons go to war. Tom Breeze is on the card as well. And that's one part of it as well that Gunnar Nelson was saying is, Leon Edwards is good friends with Breeze and Gunny's good friends with Breeze. So they've trained together, so it'll be a bit awkward in that sense. But good card. And I don't know, Sean, you might try and get yourself over to London for that one.
Yeah, I was actually looking at it. I was like, fucking hell. I was looking at the hotels around it. They're like €250 a night for the hotels around. I'm like, Jesus, all right, I won't bother. I'll wait for the next one. There's a friend of mine over in Glasgow. Hopefully they bring a card there and I'll go to that. But Tom Breeze as well. I know if you lads have it up in front of you there. How long has he been out? Like, because for me, Tom Breeze might be the best of all of them. Well, maybe apart from Till, but. Like, I know, is he fighting middleweight now or welterweight? He kind of jumps around between the two. But Tom Breeze, for me, is a top prospect there. And, he's had bad injuries over the last while, been out for long periods, I think a couple of times as well. So it's a big fight. Whoever he's fighting in over the next couple of fights, a few big fights for him as well. But, Till as well, bouncing back, obviously, from the loss against Woodley. And, the last fight in Liverpool against Wonderboy wasn't the best fight in the world. Went back and watched that during the week. And it was a funny one because, Liverpool crowd, as we both know as Man United fans, no matter what happens, they always think Liverpool are winning and they'll always kind of shout for Liverpool and, even beyond the logic, but they all seem to kind of realise, I think, that Wonderboy was winning that fight. And it kind of, it usually when fights like that, you kind of get to a big crescendo at the end, and it kind of did with the knockdown late, but after it, they kind of had to realise that Wonderboy beat him, even though he went and won the decision. But I think Till will go back and watch that fight, and I think he'll think about this, and he'll think like, I want to give these guys something to shout about. I want to get England behind me. He's talked about that before, talking about being the next big star for England with Bisping gone now and so. So I think he'll want to go in there and finish Masvidal. But it's big night for him, big night for the two lads in the co-main event, and Tom Breeze as well is another guy. I think people going in watching this fight should be watching out for.
Do you think as well that perhaps Masvidal was correctly chosen for Till? Because the UFC are savvy. They want the next big UK star.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out. I just think Masvidal has this unbelievable knack of fighting lads. I tweeted out the other day, he's this knack of fighting lads that he's probably no business fighting, and Masvidal, for me, maybe he's not the most overrated fighter in the UFC, but he's maybe the most overranked fighter in the UFC. Like, I think he's ranked like in the top 10 or something. He's absolutely no business being ranked up there. Like, and I think it's but the problem with that as well, like, he's a tough fight. He reminds me of someone like, an Evan Dunham or someone like that. He's always a tough fight for guys, not the most talented guy in the world. It's going to be a tough fight for him, but I think it's winnable. It could be another 5-round fight again, because Masvidal's never an easy out. No, he's a dogged fighter, and he's never an easy out. But Till is a lot bigger than him as well. It'll be interesting to see if Till can make weight again. I know he did for his last one, but there's going to be a lot of press in his hometown as well. I'm sure there's going to be people pulling out of him for tickets and stuff. So it's that's going to be an interesting fight for him as well. It's always a big fight coming off of a loss, and We talk all the time about guys, reaching the top, whether it's, McGregor or Johnny Hendricks or whatever, and seeing where they go when they get to the top. He almost got to the top. He got to that title fight. Now he's gone down, and okay, it's a main event in his home country and all that, but it's still a little bit of a step down. And it's interesting to see how he deals with that inside the cage and, mentally as well coming into it.
I liked Masvidal's tweet about it where he said, "Let's get it on. I like fighting in the people's backyards." That was brilliant.
That was
Yeah,
brilliant.
that was
Yeah,
good.
I probably think of
I enjoyed
Masvidal
that.
a bit more than most people, but I do agree as well that he's the guy who just fights to everybody's level, down or up.
True.
And I think that's probably why he finds it difficult to get matched, and that's why he always talks about that, because nobody really wants to fight Masvidal because it's always going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough fight. He's going to scrap, you know.
Last on the agenda, you sort of touched on it a little, Sean, earlier on. Dana White, Jessica Oi is to challenge Valentina Shevchenko for the flyweight title. White replied when asked if the UFC had decided who would face Shevchenko in her first flyweight title defense. Off the top of my head, we said we're going to do a fight with Jessica Oi. I think Oi is next. Yeah.
So Dana said it then, so it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so it's not going to happen. As you said, Sean, young Sean off camera, he'll always say we don't make fights after fights.
He makes a point of it in all the press conferences after the fight. Yo, don't like to make fights after or just after a fight.
Interestingly, this was after he was throwing bouquets of flowers at Jojo Calderwood as well, that he then went Jessica Oi. So, Sean, what do you think of that potential matchup? I know you weren't getting,
God almighty.
excited.
I tweeted at the weekend, they're getting rid of the wrong flyweight division, I think. It's God almighty. If Jessica Oi is fighting for it probably is a bit disrespectful to Jessica Oi, but still, I'm going to say it anyway. If she's fighting for a flyweight title or any title, it's in a bad situation. I know the division's only starting and everything like that, but your other option we're talking about is Joanne Calderwood. And I like Joanne Calderwood. She's a good fighter. I think she improved, and her win at the weekend was absolutely brilliant. And, the best performance of her career. Yeah. But they're going in here fighting Valentina Shevchenko, and it's going to be tough. And look, I understand it, because you're building this division. It's going to take a while for people to emerge. I'm even talking about the 135-pound division. That's been around for years, and, we're still building that up. And, building up a 145-pound division as well, and the 115-pound division is kind of rebounding as well. Rowe's been out for a while, Yin Jacek after losing and stuff like that. But it's a tough one, isn't it, for the flyweight division, because you have to, it's a bit like a soccer team who had a few Premiership winning teams, and then lads get old and you're rebuilding the team and it's coming back. Now they're starting from nowhere. They're a bit like Man City in the early days, maybe, or Chelsea in the early days, or whatever, building it up bit by bit. But I don't think Arjen Robben and Damien Duff are coming in there anytime soon. It's going to be a lot of the.
Our American listeners are lost.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of
Arjen Robben
Shevchenko baiting the head off people. But that should be fun as well, though. Chris Cyber baiting the head off people was pretty fun for a couple of years. So give me a few of them with Valentina Shevchenko. But this is not exactly one where I'm coming up the week before and I'm looking at Wikipedia and I'm seeing Jessica is fighting Valentina Shevchenko. How am I going to break that down? I'm going to be like, yeah, Valentina Shevchenko's going to box the head off her and it's going to be an easy night, let's be honest here. But there you go.
It is a weird comparison, isn't it, looking at the two flyweight divisions? You have one that they're getting rid of, they're trying to get rid of with all their power. Then you have another one that they're trying to build up and you're like, where's the fights? Like, what fights are you going to do? It's so weird. And yeah, I agree. It's not really the most intriguing fight in the world. I just think it's a fight for Valentina to stay busy, to be honest.
1 point, Sean, before we let you go. Appreciate your time. Is Sean Nation, the Sheehan Nation, was out in force.
Oh shit, yeah.
This week.
Excellent. I loved it so much.
So you put out a tweet. I like this. You do this on a regular leading up to a card. You put out like a weird sort of fact or something, sort of a trend happening with a certain fighter. So you spoke about TJ Dillashaw, and you mentioned that his run in fights was like four wins, a loss, 4 wins, a loss, 4 wins, a loss. And he said he's currently on a 4-fight win streak, and he fights Henry Cejudo on Saturday evening. Great tweet. Got a lot of response. And a certain TV company, let's
BT
call
Sports.
them BT Sports, basically took that tweet word for word, but put emojis and little ticks and stuff beside it.
Dressed it up a little bit.
Dressed it up a bit like a pig wearing a fur coat. And took full credit and gave none to you. But that wasn't happening in the Sheehan Nation. Have they given you any credit yet?
No, of course they didn't. But it's hilarious because about 4 or 5 people who weren't following me before started following me. Were like, oh god, I didn't realize they were robbing people's tweets and all. But it was hilarious. I knew someone would rob it. Like the second I put it out, I didn't know it. But then it got like 5,000 or 4,500 likes or whatever. And then like after about 1,000, I was like, someone is going to rob this. I know, and I won't name them now, but you know the usual suspects who go around robbing tweets like this. And I knew someone would rob it. I was just waiting, and then I saw someone tag me, and I just saw BT Sports and then Sean Sheehan, oh, they're robbing your tweets now. And I clicked on it, looked up, I was like, brilliant. So I was like, go tweet this straight away anyway, because I knew people had abused them. Like, and there was already like 4 or 5 people had abused them before I'd even seen it, and then like 20 more come in. So I was, they got the full force of Sheehan Nation. Fair play to them. The replies were absolutely ruined for BT Sports for about a day anyway. So it was,
so BT Sports, the only honourable thing they can do is give you a free subscription to BT Sports.
That is a fact. And a job if they have one.
So you can watch the fights. And a job. Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, you can look after their Twitter. But we hugely appreciate you coming on. It's been, like we said, 2.5 years in the making. If people want to listen to you regularly, where can they listen? Give your shout outs to the shows and all where you're writing everything there, Sean.
Yeah, you can get us the podcast severemma.com. It's up every Sunday usually. Dad time a bit later, dad time a bit earlier, but mostly on a Sunday. It's on all the podcast apps and all. Spotify just came on there a couple of weeks ago, so Stitcher, iTunes, the whole lot. Severe MMA podcast, look it up. We're on Patreon as well. If you go to severemma.com/points, you can get it there. It's the price of a pint a month, and I do loads of different things. A Q&A every day, answer every question people send in. I do a rewatch every Thursday, so I go back and watch an old fights. Let's say, TJ Dillashaw and Henry Cejudo fought last week. I went back and watched Cejudo versus Hayes, and I watched TJ versus Garbrandt too, I think. So I'll do a few of them, and then, we've UK MMA shows and loads of different stuff. We usually have 3 or 4 shows a week. So, for the price of a pint a month, you'll get about 15, 20 shows, early access to podcasts and all that. So, you can follow me on Twitter as well, @Sean Sheehan BA, and everything that I do goes up there, trying to stay as busy as possible, but, you know yourselves, that's not always that easy.
No, we appreciate the time. Keep up the great work, and we've popped the cherry, so let's not wait too long before we get drunk and meet in a bar again.
Beautiful, thanks for having me.
Take care. Cheers, Sean.